Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia, and here on my channel, we have healthy discussions about life, love, dating, and relationships while promoting self love and healing. And I sometimes use reality shows and hot topics as my medium. Today, we're talking about Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 9. So, today's video is going to be kind of a mixture of a little bit of me coaching and just a little bit of me doing some reviews. Please let me know your thoughts on this format in the comment section below. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. If you're a new subscriber, welcome to the family. If you are returning, thank you so much for supporting me. So let's hop right into tonight's. Well, we picked up where we left off last week, and Dom and Mac has decided to call it quits. Well, Dom has pretty much decided to call it quits. And so for them, I'm going to approach this as this is what we would do if this was a couple or individuals that came in to see me. I don't really work with couples. I work mainly with individuals at this time. Okay. And just areas that we will work on. So the experts, in my opinion, should have known that Dom was not ready for not only this process, but just to be married in general. A lot of these couples and a lot of the couples that come on this show really don't have healthy relationships, to model a marriage. And that kind of puts them at a disadvantage. Also, they don't have anyone to help support them through the areas that they need improvement or that they can improve, or where they may have challenges or concerns or areas that they may need to work on. And they don't have guidance, which is really unfortunate. So that's where a lot of the problems are coming in. These two, I don't feel were matched properly. But in a lot of ways, I blame them, and I also blame the experts. I blame the experts because some things were just blaringly obvious. So you can see that Dom maybe hangs around or surrounds herself around older women. I think she spends a lot of time with her mom and her mom's friends. I think Dom's mom is around my age. I'm in my I'm 46. And a lot of young ladies, when we were younger, because of everything that was happening, we were latchkey kids because our parents had careers, or we had the independent single mom, or we had parents that were away a lot for work, or there was substance abuse. Like, there was just the absent father. There were so many factors there. And I remember a time when a lot of young ladies had children to have someone to love and support them. It became like almost a fad. I don't know if that's the case with Dom's mom. I'm not going to pretend to know that, but I just know a lot of women around that time were having children for the wrong reason, because children are a lot of responsibility. You're responsible for a life. And a lot of times what happened in a lot of these relationships is that the mom wanted to befriend their child because they wanted a connection that we didn't have with our parents, because our parents were absent. And so you kind of go overboard and you become the parent that you wish you had, but lack like the structure and the discipline that the child may need. And I kind of think this is somewhat what happens. And, we all do the best we can. I'm not pointing blame. I'm just pointing out that I remember this transition. It went from, you didn't want to be a single mom, you had to be married. There were shotgun weddings and there was shame around you being a single mom, to when we no longer had parents, a lot of young ladies were just like, I'm just going to have a baby. This baby's going to love me and I'm going to love my baby how I've never been loved. And there's this disconnect between parenting and friendship. So I feel like also that if she was a young mom, sometimes what happens is that moms try to live through their daughters. And so I feel like we get a little bit of that with them too as well. And that's unfortunate for Dom, because what's happening is she's not given the permission to live her own life for herself and to grow into the person that she is. We all have our own purpose in life, our own personalities. We are all our own individuals. And Dom needs time to be that for herself. And her mom has to take more of a supportive role, versus, in my opinion, versus her trying to be her friend or trying to live through her. It's time for mom to live her own life and allow her daughter to live hers. So I find it unfortunate, but the fact that her mom signed her up for this show, the showrunners or producers or whomever selects the cast should have said, no, this isn't a good idea. But of course, it's great for TV, so I'm sure that's why they went along with it. And then also the fact that Mac has kind of been, unavailable emotionally. And then as far as Mac goes, we have to deal with the fact that Mac recently got over breakup, and Mac isn't really over this breakup, and he's dealing with that. And then I have concerns about Mac's coping skills, right? Whenever Mac is anxious, I notice he reaches for a drink. He did it at the wedding. He's done it so many times. And I've never seen him appear to be intoxicated. However, I do notice that one of his ways of coping, whenever there's a tense environment, I see Mac reach for a beverage, a drink. So these are some concerns. I feel like maybe have been overlooked. The experts had no way of knowing how Mac coped, but that is a great question to ask. And considering the fact that they asked all these questions, I'm like, oh, maybe you guys should have picked up on that. And all it takes is one social event. They could have had a social event, like if they would have like a meet and greet like they do on Ready to Love. I think that would be a great idea too, where you can kind of see how they operate before you select the people for the show. Lifetime, if you use that idea, send me a check. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. But we're going to talk about how I feel both of them can work on themselves to be better for the next relationship. Okay. For Mac, or for both of them, effective communication is key. Mac kind of waits until the pot boils before he speaks versus speaking up because he tends to people please. Now, I've said it before, I feel like Mac is running from something, his home. I feel like Mac is like a rebel without a cause. He's rebelled against kind of a controlling environment, possibly. And I feel like Mac is in search of something. So we will work on self-discovery and healing some old wounds and allowing Mac to be himself and discovering why people pleasing is the way that he navigates in life. Because I stated before that we all try to survive, and whatever has worked is what we do. And if people pleasing has worked, if your parents have taught you that pleasing them is the only way that you get love from them, then this is what you do. And that could be the case with Max. So we will work on those areas, and then also some grief work surrounded around his previous relationship. And I will also want to work on him taking his mask off, but that comes with the self-discovery work. But the honesty problem, or the dishonesty problem, I should say, is a safety issue and will be a safety issue for any woman. He wears this mask, he jokes around, he tries to please, but all of these actions block intimacy because you can't trust them. Dom said on the after party, she just felt in her gut that things weren't right. And I'll never tell anyone to go against their gut. Trust your gut. You have to know the difference between your gut and your fear, though, or your gut and a narrative, or you projecting. But if you know that something is not right, if you have that feeling like something's not right, I'm going to always encourage you to trust your gut. So I do commend her for listening to herself. That is a sign of trusting yourself. And that's something we're taught not to do, which makes it so difficult for us to do. And then we often betray ourselves. So kudos to Dom for that. But when we deal with Mac really has to hone in on, I would like to hone in on or focus on self-discovery. So you guys know I am a self-love advocate, and that will be my area of work for him. When we talk about Dom, communication is key with her as well. But I want to just talk about her age. Developmental status is very important when we're talking about building relationships and how to build relationships. Dom is 25 years old, and your frontal lobe, which is the part of your brain that handles emotional regulation, self-control, problem solving, judgment, communication, being impulsive, and just how you socialize. That's the part of the brain that's developed. That's the last portion of the brain, which is why we see some of the behavior with her that we see, her being impulsive, her trying to emotionally regulate herself. A lot of that has to do with where she is in her developmental stage. And that is an area that we would talk about so that she is aware of that, because a lot of people don't know that. And that's why one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say a person is an age, that they should know certain things. First off, you need experience, you need wisdom. If you've never seen it, if you've never experienced it, if you don't have that kind of a wisdom bestowed upon you, which happens through experience, how would you know? You don't know until you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And then when you add on the fact that people develop throughout life differently, we have our set developmental stages, but trauma, environment, genetics, environment, I said that already, all play a role in how we develop mentally. And sometimes there are delays because of, again, trauma, environment, genetics, and just our developmental status, nutrition, so many other factors. So something she can't help, but if she's more aware of, she can work on it from that angle and allow herself to develop. I will also, again, we will want to work on her learning to set boundaries around her mom and being okay with living for herself. I think she still feels like she has to live for her mom. I don't feel like Dom was really into this process. She talked about the party and the vacation, right? Which she's 25. She wanted to party. She wanted to have a vacation. She wanted to enjoy herself. But the idea of commitment and marriage really didn't seem from her conversation to be the goal here. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the both of them decided that they were going to break up anyway. And she maybe did it sooner. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know that. So this is alleged, just me and my tinfoil hat. So those are the areas I will work on with her. I will bring attention to her developmental stage, and we will work on that. Improve her areas of communication and effective communication, taking the, initial emotion out of it and being a little more logical. And I will definitely talk to her about reflecting on her behavior. How are you showing up? What are you doing? And how do you think that impacts others, right? Her criticism. Criticism is one of the ways that we can determine whether or not a couple is going to divorce or not. And her constant criticism would already let me know that they weren't going to make it. So those are the areas I will work on with the two of them and really focus on her giving herself permission to live her own life. And setting boundaries around her mom again. So that's it on Dom and Mac. Wish them well. We will see them at the reunion. Next up, we have the hostess with the mostest. We have Gina and Clint. And Clint seemed so happy to have his family. He has his new dog, he has his new wife, and he seems committed and excited to see where things are going to go. And I really like that about Clint, that even though he experienced something that was unpleasant, he is still willing to give it a try. He's looking at the big picture and he's committed to the process. And he could very much be resentful towards Gina, mean towards Gina, but he's not doing that. He is just willing to take the experience. But Clint still holds a space for himself. He still protects himself and he still expresses how he feels. So he won't allow you to take his voice away, but he is willing to compromise and give some room for growth. And I love the fact that he's doing that. He appears to learn from his mistakes or just be willing to learn at all. Some people can't get ahead with relationships in their career or personal, especially romantic, because they can't learn from their mistakes. They're not teachable, they're not coachable, they're not in the place and space where they're ready to receive. And that isn't a dig towards anyone, but those are some of the barriers for whatever reason. Um, and Clint seems very open and willing, which can garner a lot of respect and growth for him, even if he and Gina don't work out, which we know they're not going to work out. Moving forward, he can take these lessons onto his next relationship, which is a great thing. For Gina, as I stated before, I think Gina has a big fear of her flaws and being seen as enough. So, areas with Gina that I will work on will be rebuilding her self esteem and processing that previous breakup, because she hasn't, in my opinion, and from what I see and what she said, given herself the opportunity to process this breakup. She dove right into work, and that's another form of what we call disassociation or numbing. She's just trying not to feel the pain. And I think maybe the ex, I don't know, but I think maybe the ex was very critical of her physically, or the breakup made her feel like she wasn't enough. And the event that happened between her and Clint was kind of triggering. So we work on building self-esteem and love of self and acceptance of self. And also we will work on knowing when your knowledge applies, right? And being aware when your knowledge applies. Sometimes we think that what one person did, all people are going to do, and that's not the case. You can't always project the past onto the current person or the future person. Um, be patient enough to see if something is really what you think it is. Don't write the narrative that it is complete across the board, that everyone who says they like or dislike something is out to attack you or wants to hurt you and things like that. And I think that kind of is what happened with her as well, or with them as well. But she also has to be mindful again of how she shows up and what she says and what she does. And again, self-reflection is important. I've said this before. I think when I reviewed the other season, I reviewed season 14, a person, and I tell my clients this, it's very important that when you're talking about getting into relationships, that you are self-aware, self-reflective, and self-corrective, right? Are you aware of who you are? Are you willing to reflect on the part that you've played? Are you willing to be accountable and responsible for your own behavior? Are you willing to correct your own behavior? Are you willing to address concerns that are valid? And so those are some areas that we will work on with Gina, because she dismisses Clint's concerns, which isn't healthy in a relationship, because then your partner doesn't seem or feel heard or understood, and they're not being validated. And then that causes a whole nother host of issues. So those are my thoughts on those two. Let me know your thoughts below in the comment section. Next up, we have Kirsten and Shaq. Let me just say this. Kirsten has put Shaq in the ego friend zone. And the ego friend zone is the friend that people reach out to stroke their ego. The one you know that's going to show up for you, the one you know that's going to compliment you. You know this person wants you. They give you a boost. They give your self-esteem a boost. That's where he is. He's going to do anything for her, make her feel good, make her feel wanted, but she can't reciprocate. I think for her, for several reasons. I think there is a wall up, there's barriers. I've said since day one, I don't feel like Kirsten, she's not adding up for me. So I don't think she's showing her true self, which is why they can't really get a lot of footage. It's like, you don't really see a lot of them. She'll smile and she's soft and she's sweet, but we don't know Kirsten. We don't know anything about Kirsten other than this kissing situation. And even with that, originally he didn't ask for a kiss. She didn't want to kiss him because he had a bald head. And there's just been several reasons why she won't kiss this man. And now today we're at, she's not a good kisser, which you don't need to be a good kisser to peck or to give like a soft kiss on the bottom or top lip. Like, You don't have to be very skilled to do that. If Kirsten was just saying, I really want to get to know him more before I kiss him, that would be one thing. But her excuses and reasons change. And I'm sure that says a lot to Shaq. Shaq is going along to get along, and so is Kirsten. And it really isn't good for either one of them. So we're going to see what happens when the family was there visiting the one husband. His facial expression showed it all. And so we know that this is Kirsten's norm. At least that's what I picked up, that this is what she does. She really isn't interested, but she'll drag you along. She'll play with you a little bit, but she really won't reveal herself. And again, it's kind of easy to pick up that Kirsten isn't emotionally available and that she's extremely guarded. So I wonder why the experts chose her to be on the show. I know good TV, but what is it about her that they really wanted to display? I really wish there's so many moments of opportunity here. I wish we saw more of the experts show up for these couples. As far as Kirsten goes, I would work on trying to take these walls down. And with Shaq, I would really work on wanting to know where he is and why he's allowing himself to be handled in the way that he's being handled. I believe in informed consent. I'm going to talk about this a little bit with Jasmine too. When people are giving you information and they're telling you, I'm not really interested in you, I won't invest in you. If you proceed, then you become compliant in the mistreatment of yourself, right? So you can't really blame the person anymore. They're doing what they're doing. If they are a snake, they're going to do what snakes do, right? But you have the information, you know it isn't right, you know it isn't how you want to be treated. You have to figure out, why would I allow this behavior? Why would I allow this treatment? Why would I want someone to treat me like this? Why am I staying and why am I accepting? So that's where Shaq and I would go. We would want to discover what the why about this is about, what the why is about. Next up, we have Jasmine and Airris. One day I'm going to do a separate video just on the two of them because there's so much here. There's so much here. But I want to start with Aries meeting with his cousin, Fallon. Is it Fallon or Felina? I don't know, his cousin. And I have so much to say about this dynamic. I did a video, and I will make sure I tag the video in this video about the company you keep. And she actually was the motivation for this video. I've seen this play out so many times. I'll address Aries' issues with abandonment and things like that, how abandonment can show up. I want to see this next week's episode before I do the video, but I want to do a video dedicated just to him or them. I may do it on both of them. I know Aries doesn't want to lose another person, right? Loss for a person who's a lost people seems huge. The smallest loss, the smallest boundary. It doesn't even have to be full loss, but putting boundaries and requiring that people treat you a certain way can be really tough when you've lost people in the past because you don't want to push someone else away because you don't want to deal with the loss, even if it's unhealthy. The cousin isn't completely wrong, but I don't really see her being in support either. I don't believe what she's trying to pretend that she's intending are really her intentions. Okay. And I say this because your cousin comes to you, says he wants to be married. Essentially, what Aries is saying, and I know people are going to disagree, but this is what I see and what I feel. Aries is saying, I want a family. I want my own family. I want to be a man and I want to be a husband. Aries doesn't have the support for that. He doesn't have the modeling for it. He doesn't have anyone to help him along. He hops into this process. I don't see Aries as someone who is more like a Nate, who wants to be seen, who feels like this will help his career. Although I don't have anything against Nate at all. But Nate is like, I'm going to navigate this situation to make my life better. I don't see Aries as that person. He's very much an introvert. He's very much guarded and shielded. I don't feel like this is for him to gain popularity. I really think he took this as an opportunity to maybe have his own family. I want to know where Aries' mom is, and I would love to know more about their dynamic. Okay. But Aries has suffered a lot of loss, and it shows up a lot in this relationship as far as him being emotionally unavailable. Um, and then you have a cousin the person who you are close to, I guess she's the only one that's there in Nashville. You go to your cousin and you let your cousin know, I want to be a better man. And the only thing your cousin can tell you is that you can't be that. You can't be that. You won't be that. You weren't that. You're not going to be that. Kev on stage said something, and I said it in that video. Honesty without kindness is cruelty. Your cousin is telling you you'll never be a better man. This is why it's very important that you be mindful of the people that you allow to speak into your life, right? And she's not speaking life into him in any kind of way. Her only advice was go ahead and sleep with your wife. However, he just told you he wasn't attracted to her. Having sex with Jasmine isn't going to fix the problems that they're having, right? And she isn't an expert, but why would that be your recommendation when you've already said he uses women? You promote him using women, like how she has her foot on their neck. I'm like, do you have your foot on his neck when you see him quote unquote mistreating women? There's just so much there. There's so much there. But she doesn't really support him. In my opinion, I don't really see her supporting him. She focuses on the negative. She found it funny that it's not working. This man stood here and said, listen, I've never had anyone treat me like this, and she handled things like a lady. And whether the cousin likes how Jasmine handles things or not, the truth is Aries and Jasmine handles things the same way. They both are Jasmine is a little more passive aggressive because she's trying not to rock the boat, right? But they both give these answers. She's attractive, but I'm not attracted, right? Um, she handled it like a lady. Things like that. Now, let me just be clear. I really feel like Aries, because he's used to it, and he may just really be attracted to a more assertive, aggressive woman. He said he wanted a strong, independent woman. I think that's what he wants, but it really isn't what he needs. And he's trying to change his life. He wants to do things more in a community. You need someone like Jasmine who knows how to have a conversation with people, who knows how to answer questions appropriately, who can take the sting out of things. That's how you can build relationships and get what you want. I've worked with so many people who can't get promotions because they come off so harsh, so hard. They're not teachable, they're not coachable, they know everything, and you can feel their mean spirit. That's what's blocking you. Like, you're well qualified, you have the experience, you know what you're doing, you're great at your job, but how you show up is off putting. And that's what's keeping you stuck. And so he needs someone to kind of help him because he's not one to speak much. So he's not going to do the talking. So he needs someone who can balance that out. And she doesn't support that. And she laughed in his face. Like, he's really struggling trying to figure this out. Even if it doesn't work between him and Jasmine, I still don't think it's going to change the fact that Aries wants to be a husband. He wants a family. He doesn't know how, he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't have any resources. And that's just my stance on it. So you have this person who's reminding you that you're going to always be where you are. And that's unfortunate. And his other two cousins, they or whoever they were, it's a game to them too. So, just be mindful of the companies you keep. Aries may need a new group of friends. But when I do their video, I'll go into that a little bit more. A question I do wish the cousin had asked Aries was when Aries said, she asked Aries, did he want to be married? And Aries said yes. I wish he had asked if he wanted to marry Jasmine, because that's where we're having disconnect. Do you want to be married to Jasmine? That's the question, right? Do you want to stay married to her? Or do you just want to be married? And she could have said, you know what? I know you want to be married. I support you in that. I just feel like there's some areas, you need to work on. No, she never once said, I support you. She just said, go sleep with your wife. If you want to be here, sleep with your wife. Now, she did say poop or get off the pot, which was great advice. Like, don't waste your time. But I really do think he's trying to figure this out. He can't get in his mind why he's not really interested in her in a romantic way. And I've said my thoughts on that, but we'll see. I think he's just guarded. I think giving up his heart is just a little bit too much for him. But we should see. But I did not like the fact that Aries decided to invite the cousin, although he knew that Jasmine did not want the cousin there because the cousin is basically disrespectful. She said you were fake. So if you feel like I'm fake, we don't need to be in each other's space. You definitely cannot come to my home. I am a protect my peace kind of person. You can't come to my home if you don't respect me. You can't come to my home if you don't respect my relationship, right? This is my space. This space has to remain peaceful and clear of any negative energy or drama. And so it was an act of betrayal, in my opinion, for Aries to decide to invite her anyway against his wife's wishes, right? That goes and speaks to selfishness and immaturity. So these are areas that Aries needs to work on. You're in a partnership, that's your partner. I will say that this though, if the cousin and the aunt had been there at the same time, that would have been a very interesting interaction because both of them are no nonsense. And the thing about a lot of no nonsense people is they usually can't take what they give. And so it would have been interesting to see how they interacted with one another. As far as Jasmine goes, I really wish she would be more clear, right? When it comes to him, don't make statements on the side. Just say what's really, be more clear and be more consistent. But neither one of them can really communicate well. But if she would be more clear, because of how Aries is, when you're dealing with someone who has issues with, again, abandonment, it makes you not trust people. It makes you feel like everyone is going to leave. Jasmine has done a few things that could, I feel, may concern Aries. Number one, when she found out about the young lady that he had slept with, she gave him the silent treatment. So number one, that lets him know, hey, she may leave me. Again, that's a fear. And then the other is she doesn't necessarily express herself. She doesn't have to talk like how the cousin talks. But with Aries, she may need to be a little more direct and clear and not so passive aggressive, if that makes sense. Aries needs to support his wife and provide a safe environment for her. So there's a lot of room for a lot of work for the two of them. And again, even if they don't stay together, there's a lot of opportunity for growth and learning here and for them to see one another. But Aries in his loss, something they have to deal with. And then Jasmine in her way of dealing with things. Jasmine has not processed a lot either, I don't feel. She works and keeps herself extremely busy. My question would be, Jasmine, what are you running from? What do you feel like you're running from? What are you trying not to think about? What are you trying not to acknowledge? Because that's what that is. When you are a workaholic, a sexaholic, somebody that drinks a lot, all of these ways that people try to numb themselves and cover themselves, no matter what it looks like, is because they're trying not to feel something. And that unprocessed pain and that unprocessed wound or unaddressed wound will continue to try to show up no matter what, because it wants to be healed. It wants to be addressed. So that's where we will go with the two of them. But like I said, I want to do a breakdown on their video and we'll talk about them later because we'll be here all day. All right. So next up, we have Nicole and Chris. Okay. So Nicole really let us know this week that she plays a huge role in the demise of her relationships. And what I mean by that is she doesn't know how to be treated well. She doesn't know what to do with someone that's kind to her or that considers her. And in the past, if they were nice, she pushed them away. So she's essentially pushed guys away who could have really been good for her. I do have my concerns about Chris. I do. But I don't think necessarily that Chris is a bad guy. But I do have my concerns. I talked to you guys before about how people pick up certain behaviors to survive. And I want to know how Chris has learned to survive. Is it by being the nice guy, but that really isn't completely who he is? Like, let's figure this out. So I have questions about Chris as well. But I will tell you, Chris, and I will tell you that the friends are making things worse. Chris, you can tell, is already afraid of the potential of Nicole's behavior. And everyone keeps confirming her poor behavior. Clint says she's going to push you away. The friend says she's a bully. Everyone is telling Chris that Nicole's going to run over him, abuse him, be too much, and mistreat him. And he keeps saying, I don't want that again. I don't want to experience that again. Because who would? Who would want to be abused again and mistreated again and bullied? Who would want that? He keeps emphasizing that that isn't what he wants, but people keep telling him that's what she's going to do. And I think that's why he wants to keep his own place. So for the both of them, what I would want them to do as a couple is Nicole has to learn to trust that when he says yes, he means yes. And when he says no, it's no. And don't push the envelope. And she pushes the envelope. Nicole bought these shirts and she wanted to know what he thought about the shirts. And he said, I don't like them, but I'll wear it for you. Like, I don't like the shirt. I wouldn't have picked it, but I'll wear it for you. Well, you don't have to. He said, I'll do it for you. And she keeps going back and forth. It's like, please reject me. When people have this conversation around a man needing to handle me and be tougher with me, you are welcoming abuse. And you have to understand that, right? First off, regulate yourself, your own emotions and your own feelings. Is one thing for a person to say, you know what, I think, I'm seeing something, and they bring behavior to your attention. It's completely different for you to hold them responsible for managing you. You're giving up your power. And you're saying you can't self-regulate. So essentially, you want someone to parent you. You don't want them to be your partner. You don't want them to be your man or woman. You want them to be your parent. And that is not the role of your significant other. And Nicole is suffering from that. And she doesn't know how not to be the victim. And she's trying not to act out because she may be used to a lot of chaos and confusion. And this is new for her. And so we will have to work on them communicating where these boundaries are. I also want them to stop tiptoeing around one another. They're so afraid of setting each other off. It will really need to be addressed on how to have conversations and handle conflict and trust that the other person knows who they are and what they want. So those will be some of the areas I will work on with them two together as individuals. Again, I've spoken before. I think Chris really could work on grieving past relationships and situations. And we will really work on Nicole's self-esteem and why she feels the need to have someone else try to regulate her, and why she has a hard or difficult time feeling like she deserves to be treated well. So those will be my areas for her, or the areas I would suggest. And with any client that I work with, if I feel like a therapist needs to be involved, I always recommend that they work with a therapist depending on the level of trauma and complexity of whatever may be happening. But those are my thoughts for Married at First Sight Season 16, Episode 9. My apologies for the delay. I'm off camera because it's the middle of the night. And I'm like, I'm not turning on these lights and setting up, but I need to get this done. Next week will probably be late as well, just because this week and next week, my schedule is really busy. So I'm going to upload them as soon as possible, and then hopefully I can work on the Airris and Jasmine video to get that up for you guys. But I do appreciate you for being patient and understanding. Please check out my other videos, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Also, I'm bringing my podcast back, so make sure you check my community tab. I will link the links to my podcast once I record and upload an episode there. I love you guys. I thank you. I appreciate you. And please don't forget to love yourself for who you are. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.